Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? How are we today? Hope you're all good. Hope you can all hear me. The usual, making sure that we've got everything set up before we get too far into talking about what we're going to talk about. Hey there, Stuart, Chris, and Adam. Good to see you all. Hope you're all well. Hope you've had a good weekend. And yeah, so, I mean, we did it really, didn't we? We're back. We're back at, well, that's not true. We at least hit 50,000 BTC. We don't quite sit at 50,000 anymore, but it was a landmark that we got there. We'll have a look at times a little bit later on. But, for those of us that have been around since, the depths of 2022, hitting 50K away probably seemed like such a long pipe dream. But actually, here we are. Even I've got someone saying loud and clear and someone saying no sound. Okay, I'm going to go with the loud and clear. It says okay now. And yeah, we made it all the way back up to 50,000. Now, unfortunately, hitting 50,000, we've woken another monster from underneath the surface that is fear and greed, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later on. But that's not to take away anything that we've actually achieved by hitting $50,000 per BTC, which is a massive level. From a psychological point of view, from just a legitimacy point of view of getting back to those levels and proving that it wasn't a flash in the pan from everyone locked down and the lockdown COVID parameters, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's good to see that we're back. In terms of what we can expect from today, we're going to have a look at the 50K level. We're going to have a look at the fear and greed. We're going to have a look at some of the questions you submitted and have a look at some of the psychology kind of things, that stuff people have been talking about in Discord. We'll have a look at price action. I want to have a look at alts as well, because Bitcoin dominance is on the rise, but there's still an opportunity for the altcoins to do well. And what I would say is a lot of the altcoins that we've been looking at recently have been performing very well. So let's just jump straight into things. Here's a chart. I'm going to go through Bitcoin a little bit later on. You can see that we've actually pulled back from 50,000, currently sitting at just above 49K. Now, we did have some CPI news today, which I will very briefly cover a little bit later on. It came in slightly hotter than expected, and the markets didn't like it. The markets didn't like it at all. Matter of fact, if we just blow this chart up, and we have a look at the S&P, you can kind of see today, I mean, this is the weekly chart, but if we put it on the daily, yeah, we had a pretty strong correction from that 5,000 level down to 49.24. NASDAQ was the same. And as you would expect from a move like that from the markets, the dollar's moved up quite nicely, just sitting slightly above 105. And I want to just move this back onto the weekly, and then I'll blow up the dollar, because, I mean, you can kind of see it already. It has just been ranging very nicely now, sort of from this level down here to kind of this level here. I know it's slightly peaked above, but we are getting close to, that 106 to 107 level, which we have seen as a reversal point on the dollar. Obviously, we kind of expect that whatever the dollar does, the opposite is going to happen to risk-on assets like crypto, like stock markets. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on where that's going over the next few weeks. Put that one down again. I mean, we've got Ethereum, which I would argue has been performing better than BTC. Certainly stronger moves on the weekly. Still potentially that hype in and around the ETF, potentially getting approved around about halving time. We'll see on that one. And then we've got BitTensor, Tau, which has continued to do very well. And even today, when a lot of other altcoins and Bitcoin has pulled back, Tau's kind of stayed steady. Now, 5 minutes ago, it was pretty much break even. We've actually had a 3.5% increase in the time I've gone live. So we'll keep an eye on where that one is going. But yeah, I think that's something that we're all very strong about. Hey there, Jamie. Hey there, Mo. How are we doing? Good to see you all. Let's just jump straight into Bitcoin at 50K. So this is the first time that Bitcoin's been above 50K since December 2021, which is crazy when you think about it. Well over 2 years ago, we haven't seen it there. And as it says here, and as we'll go into a little bit different, a little bit later on, the market is very different right now. I mean, obviously, we've got ETFs, we've got that legitimacy. But back when Bitcoin hit 50K in December 2021, I don't think people really appreciated that we were about to enter a 2-year bear market. And so this was just one of the old standard pullbacks, an aggressive move up to 69,000. We'll catch a breath at 50K, and then we'll continue up. And it was anything but that. When we entered into 2022, well, that was a year that I don't think many of us will forget with everything that went on. And yeah, we've struggled to get down there. Now, I said I'd show you on the charts, but let's just have a look. I'll get the Bitcoin one back up again. So since it landed, since we last broke 50K, which is the week commencing the 27th of December, down to the all-time low, was 330 days, 329 days, let's call it. So just shy of a year, 11 months to get there. Now you look at how long it's taken to get back. Far longer than that. It's actually taken 450 days. And yeah, an extra 4 months in time to get there. And I think that's a very positive thing. I don't think it's been a knee-jerk reaction getting there. Yes, the last couple of weeks have had some pretty stellar growth, and we were kind of expecting bigger pullbacks, but we are where we are with that. But it has been a very staged move up to that one, and I think we're building a great foundation for the next 18 months to come. And I don't want to get too ahead in where the cycles may be, but people are kind of talking about using, whether we want to use power law or some of the other stuff that we're coming to, that the next time we see a bear market, the bottoms may be somewhere between 40 to 60,000. This 50,000 level that we're starting to interact with again could become a very crucial element for us in 3 years' time when we are looking to re-enter the market. For any of us that want to go through this again, I think I'll be completely bald by the time that happens. Right, let's just go back to the article. So it did look very different, and I'm going to sort of take you to what this summary is here, but it's actually done on a tweet, which I think is a very good thing. So the last time BTC was at 50K, so 50% of supply was held by lettuce hands. Effectively, we were still in the blow off top. There's a lot of retail that were holding on to that. Lettuce hands, paper hands, whatever you want to call it. Terra Luna was still a thing. That was still going. FTX was the second biggest exchange, and we were not aware that they were selling more BTC than they actually had on their books. The grayscale BTC premium and retail rushing in, they were buying that at a premium. So they were buying it above market value, and that was going to be a very painful bear market for those. We were on the precipice of the fastest rate hike. You got to remember, we went into 2022, and I think we had 11 consecutive months of rate hikes. And hey, it's Super Bowl week, so we had the infamous Super Bowl ads, whether it be FTX, whether it be Coinbase and all this, paying $8 million for a 30-second ad and all that kind of stuff. So, we were really trying to sell it to the retail. And we look at where we are now, and, it's almost flipped on its head. 70% of the supply is held by diamond hands, people that have held on for longer than a year. Passive Wall Street bids, we've got the ETFs. And we've seen the level of interest that they have driven. $5 billion in as many weeks. Well, it's not 5 billion weeks, but you get the point. We are very close, 9 weeks away from the halving. I think it actually is 9 weeks, 63 days from today, but we know that changes. Talk of rate cuts this year. We shall see where that goes and how today's CPI data is going to potentially postpone that timeline, although I don't think there was any immediate call from the Federal Reserve, the FOMC, to be dropping rates at the next meeting anyway. But this tweet beautifully summarized it up. Last time we were at 50K, we were in the bull season. Everyone was talking about it. Google Trends was up. Your hairdresser or whatever, your taxi driver was asking you about crypto. You were happily able to talk about it. But now we're kind of the other way. There is some noise starting to build back up, but we're not at full bull season. The noise has gone. The fluff, as they call it, has gone. And hopefully, most of us are, if not fully in the market, or a decent percentage of our portfolio in the market, and ready to just ride this wave. We'll be able to take it a lot easier over the next 18 months, knowing that we've built the positions that we've been able to build. But as I said, unfortunately, what this has done is it has created, short-term potentially, a huge spike in the fear and greed index. Now, we're back at 79. I can assure you, so we're going to have a look at the chart. I don't think this article's right. Last time we were at 79 was before the run-up in October and November to all-time high. I think that only got to around about 70. I think 79, 80 levels was kind of around about the April and May highs. And yes, in a full bull market, we can sustain being at these higher levels, these elevated levels for quite a long time, because we're relying on the FOMO that retail are going to do to keep on bringing money into the market, to keep on driving that price up. Well, unfortunately, as I've just summarized it there, we may not have that noise at the moment. And so being at 79 is a pretty scary place to be. Now, it was only 4 weeks ago that we breached extreme greed and got to 76 on the eve of the announcements of the ETFs. And we saw there that we had crash in inverted commas, but we saw the market collapse from 44 down to 38,000 fairly quickly. Now, we could argue we all knew that was going to be a sell the news event, but the fear and greed index is based on the emotion and the FOMO around all of that. So it doesn't matter that there's a sell the news event potentially on the cards. It's not discounting the score just because of that. And so that's something I think we do need to be cautious of going through. It doesn't mean that we are going all the way back down to 12,000 or anything like that. And we may even stay within these elevated levels for a few weeks. But at some stage, we will see a correction. That fear that will be caused by the correction, moving that price back down, whether it be neutral or into the actual fear category below 50, will likely coincide with a drop-off in the price of BTC. Now, we'll have a look at where those levels can be, but I think what I've sort of garnered, I suppose, from certainly what happened 4 weeks ago, and let's face it, from a lot of the other drops, they are getting bought up very quickly. So, we may start to see that fear and greed drop away, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be for a lengthy period of time. If anything, I think the evidence has shown that there's plenty of buyers on the sideline ready to buy, whether that be institutional or not. And so any drop that we may see may well be short-lived. And that is kind of where we've got to get ourselves now, thinking, okay, we're not going to get many more bites of the cherry. I know the narrative is sort of, we expect this correction before the halving or maybe just afterwards. We've got to stop thinking a bit like that and actually start thinking, if we've got anything left on the side and we are looking to put in, now's the time to do that. I'll have a look at some emotional states that we may get into that might hinder us from that. Hopefully we can learn from it. Trust me, I still fall foul of them as well and go from there. No one's put anything in the chat. Hopefully it's because you're all listening too much. But here we are. Yeah, fear and greed index. So yesterday was at 70. We touched yesterday's reading, remember, would have actually been from the 11th, from Sunday. So yesterday we hit 50,000 and that's taken us to 79. Now, I do expect we'll probably see some cooling off given what's happened with Bitcoin and the CPI data, although we've still got 3 hours and 46 minutes of that to go. But yeah, and if we scroll down, and I thought I already had this on max, so we can kind of see that I wasn't telling the truth. There actually was, if we get, can't quite get up there. So 19th of October, I'm going to have to just 79, but we know it's a little bit high. It's probably about 85 we did get up to. So, okay, I stand corrected there. But again, even these fairly short-lived before ultimately dropping back down. So, this April period where we were in the high 80s and 90s for 2 to 3 months, that was because we were in full bull. We were getting our stim checks. We were all locked down. Wall Street bets was going on. We had nothing better to do. So everyone was able to maintain it for longer. But at the moment, it's not looking like that is. And it's only natural that we should see some sort of pullback. Now, I don't like to chart this, but I would be expecting us to try and get at least back down to that 50 level and try and cool off. We don't want it spiking down and spiking back up. We want it just to cool off, sentiment to cool off, allow it time to sort of just breathe again before we move back in. And if we have a look, not this one. This, you can go on to look into Bitcoin. I don't really like this because although it is plotting against the price, you kind of have to do a mental kind of picture calculation in your head of that green is where it is and try and have a look at where the others were. But we can kind of see we have moved into the dark green. And we only had a couple of dots at those. They were right before big falls. Now, this is the sustained period of dark green I talked about in the main bull run up in the beginning of 2021. But after that, without that stimulus, without that, retail driving us in and keeping us going, we fell away. And if we go all the way back to June, July of 2019, we've had exactly the same, where we've had a strong run up, start hitting these higher scores. Now we got to 95 at one stage, then we fell away, and this was a much more sustained falling away, probably around about 6 to 8 months. Now that's certainly not what we want to be seeing. That's going to really mess with the 4-year cycle. But I just, wouldn't be surprised. Now we've got to remember that this isn't correlated to price. So just because this fall by 10 or whatever figure it may be, doesn't mean that that is going to automatically mean that we're going to fall by $10,000 or $15,000. It's not relative like that, a bit like the RSI. But what it will be is if this starts to fall away, it's because likely that prices start to fall away. I did have one other chart, and this was it here again, which kind of just sort of shows you at these levels. See, this is ever so slightly different. This is where I was saying it didn't get that high, because in November and October it was at 74. But anyway, we can kind of see, again, we get to these higher levels in extreme greed, but they don't last very long, and we fall away. Sharp drop-offs. Now, whether or not we see it all the way back down into extreme fear, perhaps not. But I do expect us to see some sort of recovery there. And I think that's a good thing. That's what we want. We want it to cool off a little bit, mainly because, hey, hands up, I'd sold my BTC at just under 50,000. So I'm looking for a re-entry, whether that be back into BTC or into something else. I want to see that cool off. I think that's probably about it for the news, if you will. I don't think there's really too much more that was worth talking about. So what we will do is we'll just have a little bit of a further look at Bitcoin's price, but we're not going to worry too much now about the fear and greed. I think we've spoken enough about that. So back to the old classic summary of where we see things. And for those of you that were paying attention in Discord, sort of back end of last week, I kind of mentioned that I was considering moving my BTC from my Trezor to an exchange in anticipation of selling it. And I'll be honest with you, my initial target to sell was 46,200. Right on this line, I thought, such a strong trend line, we may have some sort of pullback there, be an ideal opportunity. Now, thank God I didn't set any limit sales, because we just blew straight through that. I mean, it's a daily candle, but even on the hourly, it proved no resistance whatsoever, and we kept on going through, and I just sort of held off and held off and held off. And then today, just prior to the CPI data coming out, felt like it was a good time to sell, regardless of if it was going to be positive or not. I just saw we'd had a couple of attempts to try and get into this level of liquidation zones, and we'd been rejected from both of it. I'd be happy, and hopefully we'd see some form of pullback, which is kind of where I'm expecting things to go. Now, these levels have been updated based off what we see on High Block, how that's been built out. So it's ever so slightly different from last week. But you can kind of see that between where we are now and south, there is honestly nothing on the higher time frames until 38,000. We're very close to this 50,600 to 52,600. I think for me, I'm going to start with a bullish sentiment. In that this isn't too far away. Now, maybe we do get that healthy pullback, but we only get it down to 47,000, 5% pullback. And we start to build back up here. There are some really nice targets in and around here. And my argument would be that if we were to clear that level, we're pretty much in free space, probably until about 58,000. And then, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but when you get to that 58,000, there really is not that much before an all-time high. Which may have seemed pie in the sky when we were talking about it at 30K, but the speed in which we have actually got up to 50,000, I'm not ruling anything out at the moment. I do think, just from looking at this, seems like a much easier level to tap into at the moment. And if we don't get, sellers stepping in to try and drive this price down in and around that level, we could blow through that quite quickly. I think it's only fair to sort of, I've talked about how many rises we're on, and this was potentially, the second peak of an M before we start to see some drops. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit muddled as to where we sit at the moment. Now, TA doesn't work 100% of the time, and I think this may be a case of where we're not, because it kind of feels at the moment that whilst this could still turn out to be second peak for them. Just given where we are, given how the order book is looking, it doesn't really feel like this is it. So we may actually be on some form of either extended rise 3 or we've miscalculated it beforehand. This is actually the rise 3. And so that's something that we need to have a look at. Obviously, I'll break the time frames down to smaller time frames a little bit later on. But big picture, yeah, we've needed a pullback. We've had 8 or 9 days in a row of green candles, and all we've done so far is pull back 1.5%. That's nothing to get worried about, okay? CPI data came in hot, gave the markets an excuse for it to do that, but actually it has shown some decent resilience. I mean, you think back to what I showed you with the S&P, a strong engulfing candle, you know, just taking away the gains over the last sort of 4 or 5 days. Whereas BTC, yeah, we dropped down $1,600 in total, but we've found support, and we're starting to climb that back up. So I think it has shown a remarkable amount of strength compared to some of the other risk-on assets there. You know, we're nicely above the 50 EMA. We're above this trend line. We're just getting squeezed between this area of liquidations and sort of like this trend line. I know we haven't come down to it, but it doesn't feel like we're in a bad position. I'm not necessarily scared. Yes, I know I've sold my BTC, and I'll explain the rationale behind that a little bit later on. But it certainly doesn't feel like this is anything to get too worried about. Now, when we drop it down to the time frames, we go down to 4. I might go into a cleaner chart if I've got one. The weekly, is that Bitcoin? Yes, it is. Let's go down to the 4 hour. I mean, we can kind of see we had that rise up yesterday, up to the 50K, and then we just went flat, and then we just perfectly formed a Bart Simpson. Put it on the 1 hour, it's going to look like it completely. But yeah, we have started to form a Bart Simpson, and you can say that we are potentially, I know I'm drawing this fairly basically at the moment, but right, because I was looking at some other level, kind of snaking in and around and up this. Now, I saw someone mention earlier that, you know, do we have a left shoulder and a head and potentially forming a right shoulder? We might do. I think it's too early to call that at the moment. All that I would say is that we've climbed up, pulled back to this line, done it again. And what you can see, there's been some buying pressure here, you know, long wicks, and we're just climbing back up. So I think we just let it do its thing. We see what the battle again around the 50,000 level is, and whether or not we can get a 4 hour candle to close above it. But it's certainly had 5 or 6 attempts at that yesterday and a little bit of today. Sorry, just lost my train of thought a second. I want to just change the chart just because I like having the indicators on. Bear with me. Now, in terms of, I use the term bearish loosely. In terms of an argument for a retracement of some sort, yes, I think there is an opportunity for it. I think, you know, we kind of need it. As I said, you go back to the 24th of January where we made this bottom at 38,500. And then since then, it's just been a fairly unrestricted rise up. And we can kind of see that the 10, the 20, and the 50 have, you know, they've done their crossovers, but now they're fanning out quite nicely. And we've left some vector candles that could easily be recovered below us. Now, you know, we can wish for these to return to these levels until we're blue in the face. But what we've seen historically, certainly on the 4 hours, even on the daily, is that actually the Bitcoin with, you know, with the momentum it's had in the past can actually sustain quite a while away from the 20 and the 50. Okay, yeah, it does creep back to the 10. So what does that mean in terms of levels, and where could we see a retracement back if it is going to go there? Well, before we throw on the usual fibs that I like to do, we've got the 10 at the moment is in and around this unclaimed vector here. The halfway around that is just above 46,200. I think that's a target that you could always consider. And then, you know, given that it'll take a few days to get here, we're then going to start to see that 50 creeping up to around about the 45,000 level, which again, it's a 50% recovery of that other vector candle. But we are to throw a fib on, get as accurate as possible. See if any of those kind of tie in. I mean, obviously, I could draw a box of each of these, but the ones that really always draw, my focus are the ones that are in orange, golden ones here. I'm not ruling out the 618, of course I'm not, but I'm not focusing on that at the moment. But I do think the 0.5 and the 382 present some levels that would be of interest to me. Now, obviously, I never really go for it to the exact dollar. I try and draw areas in and around it, and that's exactly how I'd be building them up. And I'd be looking to try and marry those up with 50% retracements of those candles, and trying to find some ideal zones in and around. Why is that not drawing? In and around here. That's going to look good, blue on blue. But yeah, that'd be the two levels that I'm initially looking at. Now that's assuming that it does make it all the way back down there, because what you could also argue is that 47,200 is right where this traffic was. Always was here. That's a really bad circle. And so yeah, that is certainly an area which it may have some confluence with. But using that same logic, this 0.5 level around about 45,000 really makes a lot more sense in terms of where we're going. So not necessarily thinking there's going to be a huge pullback. That's going to be around about, from 50,000 would be sort of a 10 to 12%. Now, of course, if we start losing those levels, then we may have to consider where that could be. And I would likely assume that there's going to be some sort of news event to help drive that down. But that's where I'm looking at the moment. That's what I'm looking to identify. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, I did sell my BTC. Now, my BTC is split in two pots. So I have a business pot of it and I have a personal pot of it. Business pot I didn't sell. Those are the ones that I did the entries from 15,000 in. So that feels like it's in a much better position. The BTC that I sold my personal pot was an average entry of around about 25,000. So pretty much doubled it. And I'm just, I was always going to sell that into alts at the moment. I'm just looking for some ideal opportunities to be able to move that across into alts. One of them that's obviously on my radar is Tau, which is still a tough pill to swallow because I missed the entry at 200. I've been buying, from 380 to 490. But had I sold Bitcoin a few weeks ago when it was back at 200, Bitcoin was at 40,000. I would have still been able to get twice as many as what I could get if I went in at market now. So, there's still a learning curve that needs to be done there, but we can't get everything right. And it doesn't necessarily mean that because Tau's now doubled in price, that there's still not opportunities for something to be made. But that being said, I know we're going to talk about Tau later. Tau has had another meteoric rise, and I haven't put any orders in at the moment. I just want to see where it goes, how it performs. Again, you look at how far these have spread out and where this would likely go. I certainly want to at least see a retest back down sort of 500 level. I may start laddering some orders in there. But at the moment, I'd rather just sit on the USDT, wait for a reset, and then at least I know that we've had that pullback. And my risk to reward of getting in, even if the price happens to be exactly what it's at now, at least I know I've already had the pullback to that level, which is what I did in the last levels of buys and should have done at the 200 level. But it is where it is there. Back to BTC. So that's where I'm looking. Big picture stuff. 45,000. Now, if it were to fall further, and we have a look at some of these levels, whether we get down to, dreamland of 40,000, maybe even you got down to that 39, back down to retesting this here, I may look to actually try and buy some more BTC back and then just siphon off the profits into something else. And that would be a much more preferred play to me. But I'm really going to have to just sort of wait and see how strong this move is down here and how quickly that market sentiment shifts if we do start to see some recovery. And that is an if. Don't get me wrong, because I still think there's still a very bullish case to be had at the moment. And we still may see that move 52, potentially even 58,000 before we see some sort of pullback. Now, why did I sell at 50 then? That seems like an odd level to sell at. Because I was always going to make that move into altcoins. And I had to try and time it at some stage. 50,000 seemed like a good psychological level. Seemed like we had the move up just prior to CPI data. Seemed like a logical one. Hey, it may go up. Doesn't necessarily matter to me because I was looking to move this profit into altcoins. We'll have a look at how altcoins may do a little bit later on. I'm expert. Harry, did you manage to post share that spreadsheet showing the updated potentials for the... So I posted in Discord. That's coming out on Thursday. So it's here. It's almost done. I'm really struggling to get a emission rate for Relio, which is skewing that one. And then I got the new ones that I need to add. The reason that crunching the data is fine. It's doing the subjective analysis to determine where we think we may see a level of growth. And that is really done on the box ticking exercise of what it is doing and how it's performed in previous markets. So that will be ready for Thursday, and it'll be out on Thursday. It'll basically be a read-only link in which you can just, save your own copy of it and update. There is no APIs at the moment to take this data straight across. Just because I always find it just breaks after a while. So it is manually done. I did manually update these today, but price has moved a little bit since then. So that'd be something that you just have to manage yourself. But once you type in this value and you calculate the current percentage, it will work that out for you. And it would probably be best that you save two, or you just save a new copy every time so you could refer back. Because what will change is the multiple. As this increases and gets to potentially this estimated dominance here, these multiples will drop. You may have already bought. So bear that in mind. A video will also come out probably on Thursday or Friday, which will explain this a little bit better. But hopefully that answers your question. Back to wherever we were, which I think was here. Okay. I think that's all caught up. I'll have a quick drink and then we'll jump into something else. So I've lifted a couple of these just from Discord. So thanks for putting them in there. One from a Savvy, who I know will be watching this tomorrow because they're now living in Dubai. But I recently had a liquidity event, so now I have a stack of cash on the side, and I'm weighing up how best to get in the market. It's annoying I didn't have it on the 1st of Feb. There's lots of cryptos on my watch list. Had a decent dip around then. I'm thinking, as we're in a bull market, I'm better off being in the market than in cash, but I don't want to ape in all in today, and there's the inevitable pre-halving dump just after, and I completely mistime it. This is one of the things that I wanted to talk about here, because let's face it, we can all relate to that. We have all likely experienced that, where you either had money on the sideline or you have new money to put into the market, and you're ultimately trying to find an ideal price to get in. But you know what? Let's get this white screen off my face so it's not highlighting me too much. Trading's hard. Trading is difficult. It's difficult because we have to wrestle our emotions so much. And there's so many things that are going on in our head to try and sow that seed of doubt. Some of it's completely subconscious as well, that it can actually make a rational decision very hard to execute, very hard to actually come to, just like here. Now, let's face it, all of us on this call believe it in our very core that in 18 months' time, the price, over the next 18 months, maybe not in 18 months' time, over the next 18 months, Bitcoin's price will be higher than 49,200. We know it in our core. So the logical the logical step to take from there would be to buy now. Except that you might have a little bit of downside, but over a longer period and a longer timeline, smooth all wrinkles, you will be up. But we can't get there. We're always trying to look. It's the human nature within us for that better deal. And actually, let me just start this caption. It's like I'm almost have to tell people I'm not an accountant, because I ain't. I'm not a psychologist, all right? So don't think what I'm going to talk about now is going to mean that you can sit a psychology exam tomorrow, because you can't. But I do recommend that you look into it, because there are things on a subconscious level that stop us from making decisions. And once we understand what they are, we can then look to sort of remove that from the equation. I'm talking about cognitive bias. It's a mental bias that ultimately stops us from making a decision or making a logical, sensible, well thought out, rational decision. Now, there's a hell of a load here. Confirmation bias, availability heuristic, negative bias, overconfidence, affinity, cognitive, so we mentioned emotional, Anchoring's the one I'm going to talk about. But there's plenty of other ones. And unfortunately, not just in trading, but in life, we suffer from these. And because we don't really know what they are, whenever we're taught to deal with them, they just constantly play on us throughout the entirety of our lives. And we make those. And anchoring is a brilliant example for cryptocurrency. Because, go back to Bitcoin. No, Bitcoin's the wrong one to do. Let's do Link, because I suffer from it. So what is anchoring? Anchoring, where is it? I got it here, so I got it exactly right for you all. Anchoring. The anchoring bias, or focalism, is a tendency to rely too heavily, to effectively anchor, as it says, on one trait or piece of information when making a decision. And it's usually the first piece of information that's acquired on the subject. Anchoring biases include or involved common source bias, conservatism, functional fixedness, and the law of instrument. Feel free to have a look at that in a lot more detail. But what it basically is saying is that we as humans, when we're looking at something that is quite complicated and we need to make a decision, we have a natural tendency to focus on something that we're told at the beginning, or we've seen at the beginning, and then we make our judgments based off of that. Now, let's talk about a prime example for that without getting into crypto. Let's talk about Black Friday sales. So we've been looking for a TV for months. We wait for Black Friday, and we're hit with, this is the sale price, because it's got a big red stick on it that says sale price. What we don't know is it's actually been moved up in price over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and then we've hit with a sale, and it's just the same price of what it would have been beforehand. But the anchoring point there is that we see it is for sale. So we're thinking we're getting value for money, when actually we could have bought it when we first initially wanted it, instead of waiting and potentially negotiate that price lower. It happens in the housing market all the time, when people, see what the value of the price is being advertised, and they have that fixated in their head about that's the price to pay, and then they make their judgments based off that, not knowing that actually the estate agent may have overpriced that ever so slightly so that they could be bidded down a bit, get to the real price that they want. Well, it's exactly the same, and what you're looking at on the screen here is a perfect example of it. Every single one of us, well, I can't say it on hand on heart, but certainly this is the first thing I look at for crypto. This screen of green and red bars, and then on the right hand side, price and percentage movement. And what does that do? That presents some sort of visual representation of where something is, and suddenly that leaves an imprint on my head. And let's take Link for a prime example. You all know that I got out of Link, and I got out of Link at not a great opportunity, not a great time. Sold at $8, whatever. And what have I been saying for the last few weeks after that? I don't want to get back in, and because I feel like I've missed the prime opportunity to buy. Well, it's because in my head I've had anchored my first exposure to Link, and that price being, I think the average price that I was buying was like $5. So now when I see it at $20, I just feel that I'm missing out on that $15 gap. And actually, Link may go to 100, 120, 200, who knows where it may go to. And so now that it's at $20, it may still actually be a good buy to have. It may still be an ideal, price entry. And we just, naturally say to ourselves, well, I got in earlier. I've seen it lower. So I feel that I want it to be lower before I get into it. And I'll be absolutely fair. I don't think that Simon suffers from this. You have a look at that thing he sent out on Telegram today about Tao Inu. He bought I don't know how many zeros, but we're going to call it 17. He bought a 26. He's bought a 40. He's bought a 60. He's not worried about that. Because he's been exposed to it in his trading. He understands that that's what it is, and he can get over it. And that's something that I still need to get over. I can do it on some tokens, but take another prime example, Rose. Here we go. I bought Rose down to 3 and 4 cents. I still think I should be buying it now at 12 cents because it is a brilliant project, and I think it's going to do very well. But I haven't bought any more because it's at 12 cents. And, I'm being anchored by the price that I got in at, the price that I've seen it at. I think it's no longer a good buy for me. And that's something that we need to get rid of. And so to go back to the statement that was made there about, I'm not suggesting that you YOLO in, but the reality of it is we have an anchoring point for the price of BTC or the overall market, because we've gone through a bear market. We've seen what that bear market did for the prices. And yes, we may have taken advantage of those, but we wish that we could still have that same level to buy back into. And what we've got to remember is, depending on what you believe in the project, depending on how the project's actually developing, it still is potentially a very good project. It still has the potential to bring you great returns. And that means we've got to try and overcome the anchoring side of it. We've got to overcome that first impression that we've had, and then be able to realize that there's still benefits there. Give you another prime example. I met my wife 30 odd years ago. We were at school together. She thought I was a wanker. So that was her first impression. Thankfully, 15 years went by and I never saw her, and I was able to change her impression. She got over that anchoring. But, those first impressions with people, they often say they count. And then you inform your decision or your likability of someone based on that. And you may be missing out because it may have just been a bad experience or whatever, what have you. But I do think it is a real thing. I think there's loads of other ones we just don't really have time to go through. But certainly have a look at this. Have a look at where you are. I think one of the other ones is confirmation bias. That tendency to take information and interpret it the way we want it to be interpreted because we want a certain outcome. We want Bitcoin to go to 150,000, 500,000, a million, whatever. Maybe there's evidence the other way. And that's certainly the case when you get towards the end of a bull season, or we think we're going to go higher. We've got that confirmation because we know we've seen it before. So I've talked more about anchoring because I think that answers the previous question. But have a look at some of these other ones. I think they're there. I think we can all learn from them. It's one we're not particularly taught how to deal with, but we know emotions play such an important role when it comes to our trading. And even if you're not trading, if you're just sort of, hodling, you're still going to have to go through that. And you're still going to hopefully be making purchases. So, I am having a look at where this is going. And, the anchoring side of things, 50K, I'm happy to sell it. It may go higher, but I want to make other decisions. I look at Tau, I had to overcome that I missed 200. Was I upset when we were first talking about it at 50? No, because I had no interest in buying it then. But I did buy some at 220 and sold at 260, wanting to buy back in at 170, and I never got there. And so I'm anchored to that 200 price that I missed, and I've had to man up and just get over it because I see the benefits of where that can go. And so, I think that's something we can all probably learn from. Jamie's put he did exactly the same thing with Sol. I imagine a lot of people have done the same thing with Sol because Sol fell so hard with his association with FTX, and you look, it got down to as low as $8. We're now at 112, 15x almost in the space of 13 months. So that can be tough. Not saying that we were trying to buy then, but excuse me. You can see how it happens now. The argument is Sol still got the ability to continue to climb. Well, you know what? It got to 250 in the last bull run, 260. A lot of development since then. Still has its problems, don't get me wrong. But it's certainly a lot well known. There's definitely room for it to continue to grow. It's just whether or not the risk to reward and the potential X is worth it now. But that's a different story. Go back to the questions. I think we covered all that. Richard's put, something that might be worth discussing. BTC wallets with over 10 BTC appear to be selling, which is usually a sign that big money is selling our market tops like we've seen in the past. Now, you're right, and you've mentioned Glassnodes. Unfortunately, I'm not paying what it is to have access to the charts that you're talking about. So I tried having a look on other analytical on-chart data websites, but I couldn't see any for Bitcoin web addresses. Now, they may well be. So I can't go through that, but I'm just going to, assume that the statement you made is correct. Why, you've obviously seen it, and I know you can make those kind of calls. And you're right, if we see the number of addresses with balances greater than 10 decreasing because they're sending that Bitcoin to exchanges, it might be they're selling it for money. Now, 10 BTC and greater wallets, I'm not calling them whales, but they are generally decent sized wallets. I mean, that's 500k, even if you only got 10 in there. So yeah, there's definitely that it shows it. Now, we've tried using on chart metrics to sort of see where we are, and if you don't know my views on them, my views are it's too slow, and it's nice to have a look at, but I'm certainly not making a trade decision based solely off that information. But there are other metrics out there that can help you, and there's hundreds of charts that you can go through that may be able to give you some sort of sign. But you're right, at the end of the day, miners are the ones mining the Bitcoin. They're also the ones that are putting up the cost to mine the Bitcoin. So ultimately, they need to. Sorry, I'm talking about miners, and we're here talking about wallets. I want to move on to miners because I can't cover this. There are some. Let's start that one again, shall we? So I've gone onto Crypto Quant. You can actually get onto this with free data. For free. So it's like Glassnodes, but you'd have to pay for it. It's just unfortunately they don't have as many charts. But one of the ones they do have is this thing called the miners position index. Now that is basically, it says here in the description at the bottom, miners position index is the ratio of the total miners outflow in USD to its 1 year moving average of the total miners outflow. So the higher value shows the miners are sending more coins than usual, which indicates possible selling. Okay, so the higher value is on the left hand side. It's this axis. So minus 2.5 up to 10, as it's seen here. If miners send some proportion of their reserves at the same time, it could trigger a price drop. Okay, what does that actually mean in layman's terms? Well, as I was explaining completely wrong at the beginning, miners are the ones that effectively get access to the Bitcoin from the block. Yeah. Okay, they're the rewards. Now, to do that, they have to spend money, overheads, capex costs potentially as well. But so every so often, they need to sell. They need to sell just to pay bills, potentially make profit, and take dividends or whatever it is they're going to do. So people started looking at the miners position index because something quite interesting. I'll zoom out. I've zoomed in just for the recent day because if you've taken everything, because it's been going on for so long, it just looks like a bit of a mess, unfortunately. But what you can see from this is that miners will start sending more and more Bitcoin to exchanges, and that uncannily seems to coincide with the price of Bitcoin going up. Doesn't mean that they sell. There's normally a trigger event for them to sell, but they start sending stuff to exchanges and the price moves up. So on this chart that you're looking at here, the miners position index, the MPI, is in blue and the price is in white. Okay, so we've got a baseline down here, the green, and then we've got the red dotted line, which is this sort of like trigger event, I suppose, if you will. But as you can see, even since the beginning of January, so just prior to ETFs, we started sending more and more Bitcoin. Miners started sending more and more Bitcoin to exchanges. And what did happen? Price goes up. It's going up. It's going up. Now, then what we had a sell-off event, and maybe they got caught out. They didn't make as much as they wanted. It's hard, this is just representative of one day, unfortunately. So we just see that there was a spike on that day, and the price finally dropped on that day. So it seems that they built up the price. They were selling, trigger event. They sold it all, and then price pushed back down. A similar event here, we get to a point, price comes back down. Now, interestingly, they missed out at the end of January, where they've had a couple of attempts. Price didn't really go up, but they still ended up having to sell, and maybe they didn't get as much as they wanted. But what we've then started to see is that we are starting to see over the last few days that the miners have been pushing this up. Now, ignore this dog leg. That's today's data, which is incomplete, only refreshes over 24 hours, so it doesn't matter. What we want to see, or what we may look to see, is at some stage, we see a trigger event. This then starts to come down. They've stopped sending as much because they're selling it, and then we start to see the price come back down. It's one way. For me, it's more of a retrospective way of knowing when something's happened. But what we can see, if you like the whole history of it, if you ever, went through, as these start going up, there's clear selling events that take place. I don't know why this isn't going all the way to the end. It's really annoying me. There we go. And you can sort of go into much more detail, and you can kind of see that as they're moving this up, as an event, and then it leads to a sort of a push down. So it's definitely something that you can have on your radar, but it's not enough on its own, is it? Because ultimately, one, this chart lags, and two, we don't actually know when it happens. Plus, we've seen in that 4-week window I showed you there that the miners miss it sometimes. So I'm not the world's biggest fan. There's more detail here if you want to actually have a look at how they calculate it and what it's all done. I'll keep a link in for you, but people follow it. I don't test that I follow it myself. Thanks for the Leeds update there, 3-0. I wanted to have it on the background, but it was too much. We can have a look at things like open interest as well. Open interest is an interesting one. You may hear people talking about OI quite a bit, but open interest is effectively all of the open positions, so both longs and shorts. And then, so as open interest increases, it indicates more liquidity, volatility, and attention are coming to the derivatives market. So more people are paying attention to it. And, again, the FOMO in and around that rise up to 50K has increased. And we've had more and more open positions. Whether they're long or short doesn't necessarily matter. Ignore the dog legs, because, again, that's today's data. We don't know where it's at. So we don't know that there's been a trigger point. But, we know as this builds up and up and up, at some stage, going to get to a point where it is going to be a blow off. And at the moment, we've got, yesterday was 13.3 billion. Now, you can get charts that will then tell you what's the longs versus the shorts. So you can kind of see what the ratio is, which again, is interesting to know. But the increased trend in OI could support the current ongoing price trend. So because price is going up, more interest is going in. You can see that way. And then as open interest decreases, it indicates investors are closing positions. In turn, this might trigger a possibility of long and short squeezes caused by sudden price movements or vice versa. So again, stuff in here which you can do it. So I know you were talking, Richard, about wallets, and I've just given 2 other examples of how you can use it. They're worth looking into. If I was able to look at the wallets, I would have done that one. But for me, I just, it's not the first thing that I run to have a look at. I think experiences, it can give you a sort of a long-term trend of where things are going, but I haven't really seen it where we've looked at it, and we did look at it a lot in 2021, 2022, and we've been able to make a clear decision on that day that we were going to do it solely based off this. So yes, I accept that wallets greater than 10 BTC maybe. I mean, when you say selling, what that will show is that they're sending it to an exchange, which we assume they would then go on and sell. But yeah, I would not just use that on its own. I would look at how it does with others. Anyway, Sally then asked, DM, she couldn't make the live call tonight. I was watching replay. Could you explain how to read charts with 2 moving cryptos, like Tau, CAS, or Gas BTC? For a 5-year-old, please. I have to remind myself almost every day. I get the concept, but I have a problem working out the charts. I think I had a little bit of a breakthrough that the first coin mentioned is priced in the other. It's priced in the other. E.g., Tau CAS means the number on the side of the chart is how much CAS to 1 Tau you would buy. Okay, Sally, we'll have a look at the charts now. It is actually very important that you interpret the charts based on the order in which you have built it. So, for a lot of the BTC charts, so I have BTC pairs here. Okay. Don't know why there's a USD in that one. Oh, it's because I've built that one. That's why. But so we have first one that comes up, which you can cleanly see, dot BTC. Okay. So dot has come first. Okay. Bear that in mind. Dot is first. I presume you just can see the button. It doesn't necessarily matter. So what you have to focus on is this scale down here. So you're right. It means that to buy 1 dot, I would need 0.004177, the current prices of BTC. Okay? That's what it means. Because if you think about it, and we go to just an ordinary chart, USBTC, BTC's first. So now we're looking at USD on the right side. And we know what the dollar is. In our heads, we know that the dollar generally stays the same price, and we can understand how much that's worth. We know that to buy 1 BTC at the moment, I would have to have $49,426. Well, it's exactly the same, except for I'm talking in BTC. Now, in your head, even subconsciously, you're trying to calculate what that is. You're not thinking about it in anything other I'm so used to seeing it in dollars, but it's 4 decimal places, 1478. And suddenly your mind's like, well, actually, how much is that in BTC to translate it to dot? Well, it doesn't necessarily, not to dot, to USD. It doesn't necessarily matter. Okay, so how can we look at it from a much bigger picture? Let's throw it on the weekly. Okay, so we've got dot first against BTC. Okay, so what we're looking for is if the chart is going down, it means it takes less BTC to buy your dot. I've got to make sure I'm getting this right now. Yes, less BTC. So back in the bull run, when dot was more valuable, we were paying 0.000738 BTC just for one dot. But obviously through the bear market and the strength that BTC has shown over the last 13 months, the value of Polkadot compared to BTC has continued to fall. Yes, okay, we've had an uptick, but it's rejected back off that. And so we're now seeing that, it has gone down. It's gone down by nearly 5 times. Now, this is good. If you've got BTC, like I did, on the sideline and you're wanting to convert that into alts, you want this. This is the time that you want to be taking your BTC. Well, maybe not right now, but this is where you want to be converting your BTC into whatever altcoin it is that you're looking for. I will go on to others than just BTC. I'm just trying to home the point here because I can get more. I can get more dot for my BTC in this example. I can get 5 times more than what it was when it was back up here on November 2021. And so that's where you're waiting for that trigger point to happen. And then when it does happen, you swap it over. And then, if the cycles continue as we expect them to, there will be a shift in, yes, the actual dollar value of BTC may go up, but the dollar value of altcoins will go up faster. And that would then mean that what we'd see is, that strength of dot returning in this example, and suddenly to buy one Polkadot, it's going to cost me more BTC each time. And I hope that makes sense from a BTC point of view. But let's stack as well. Link BTC is a prime example in the 4 hour of how it's played out. Okay, let's have a look. Link BTC. Such is my fallout with Link. I don't even hold it anymore on there. Link BTC. Now the big boys, not even the big boys, but a lot of them have already got them built. So you can have a look. 4 hour. Yeah. And to get all this in, it's going to look so small for you guys. But so Link has obviously been doing well. So we had a period where, beginning of the year, BTC was still climbing, running into the ETF. And so although Link may have been climbing in price, BTC was climbing faster, falling away. But actually what we've seen is a bit of a resurgence in Link. Want an EMA up, do you? Just throw 800, you say? Go. Down here, bounce off your eye. So it's kind of moving between two. But so what we've now seen since the ETFs is Link has actually started to grow faster. Now, both have gone up in price, but Link's price has gone much quicker. So Link's price has effectively doubled because it was around about $12 around about the ETF's time. And then it's now sitting at just under 20, whereas Bitcoin's only gone up 20% because it was at $40,000 and now at 50. So you can see that strength there, going from, it would have taken me 0.00, let's just call it 3 just for easy maths, to buy one Link out of BTC. Now I've got to pay 25% more than that because it's 0.004. So yeah, it is something that is very alien to get your head around. I accept that. But this is all bearing in mind because the one I'm interested in, I've written down first. Okay? Just because. Now let's have a look at it. Because when someone asked me in the group and I commented on it, afterwards I realized because I'd written it the wrong way round, or I'd written it the way that I was used to seeing and not the way others have seen it, you needed to flip it. So have a look at Tau. So I've got Tau BTC. Just look at the top left. Tau USDT is written first versus BTC USDT. if you ever want to write it because you can't find a pair, so if I went tau BTC, it's not there, so I have to create it myself. So I'd go tau USDT slash BTC USDT, and then it's just clicked on it, hit enter. It won't create it because I've already created one down here, but that's effectively what you'd do. So I've got tau USDT versus BTC USDT. But look, the scale's all weird, isn't it? Not great. So I can take it off linear. Still not going to be great, but it does make sense. What is BTC at the moment? BTC is approximately 50,000. What's tau? About 540. Zoom up and have a look. 560. So it's going to take you one, and we don't know what because the scale's not great, but 0.01 BTC, so 1% worth of BTC to buy one tau, and that's rough figures. That's right. You know, it's 50,000 versus 500. Would expect that to be 1%. So we know that that's making sense. However, the other way around, this is BTC versus tau. So again, you can see in the top left-hand corner, BTC USDT versus tau USDT. Now, should have, well, why don't we just put both charts on? What I didn't do. I want it as a new price scale. Let's get rid of this one. So you can see how, I know one's in bars and one isn't, but the movements are exactly opposite. Yes, the scale's not right. So we brought them down to the right size. Whatever's happening here, the inverse is happening on the other one. I hope that makes sense. So they are showing the same. It's not like it's a completely different chart or, you know, the price is different. It's just it's inverted the way you look at it. So let's just get rid of this one now. I think we'll just hide it for now. Hide this one here as well. Well, actually, so what we've got now, we've got BTC coming first. So in our heads, what's on the right hand side? Well, it's how many tau does it take to buy one BTC? Well, at the moment it's going to take 88.5 tau, which at 560 times 88.5 is going to get you close to that 49,700 or whatever BTC is currently sat at. So that's how it's worked out. But if you're looking at the chart, suddenly, remember how before we were talking about if it's going down, then that's good because we can convert our BTC into it. Well, not on this chart, we can't. To get the right size. BTC's first. So actually what this chart is showing us is since October, tau. Back in October, it would have cost me 600 tau to buy one BTC. It's now only costing me 90 tau. Okay, so we've had, can't do the maths, 7 reduction, 7 times in that. And so, whereas before, where we were looking at dot BTC, as it was going down, we were able to get more dot for our BTC. Well, in this one, remember, because BTC's come first, actually, we're not getting more BTC. We're getting less BTC out of this. And it's costing us more to buy tau. So that's why whichever way you want to put it in is the most important thing to do. So neither of them are wrong. It's just however you're going to go on to interpret it. Now, generally in the group, we would write this one as an example would be tau USDT slash BTC. We put that first. And then if you want tau CAS, which I've obviously got rid of it by mistake. That's it. So how we would typically write the tau CAS one is, again, we would have tau first and then CAS. How do we know it's right? Well, to buy one tau, we need 4,000, just over 4,000 CAS, which is about right because we're talking about something that's $550 versus something that is 13 cents. So you can do a very quick calculation in your head. So, well, that's kind of making sense there. Sally, I have no idea if that's helped or hindered. If it hasn't helped, reach out again, and I will try and correct however I've confused you. I had all these charts set up a bit further on. Never mind. I think that's it for the questions. Let's have a look. Nothing in the chat there. We're rattling through this good. We might actually have it a bit of an early finish. Maybe I'll get to the end of the Leeds game. Not that I'm rushing to get there. So let's have a look at some old coins, shall we? And just see where we're at. I think we're going to start with Tau. We've got to start with Tau, really, haven't we? So we're currently on the daily at the moment. And what have we had? We've had that continue that rise up. Now, we did have a high test yesterday, this candle here, but in a rising market, don't really need to give it as much thought as perhaps it was if it was in a falling market. So right now, I'm not too worried about the high test. As nice as that looks, it's not necessarily concerning me. What is, bearing in mind I want to buy some more, is there does seem to be, and with this on the daily, I appreciate that, some form of compression, some form of squeeze there. Let's drop it down to a lower time frame, 4 hour. Even that. What are we going to do? Wicks or bodies? Let's do wicks, because it means it hasn't broken out yet. We might have just cherry picked that, but we are, in a flat bottomed compression. Now, some people might say flat bottoms or flat tops typically mean it's a breakthrough to whichever side's flat, which in this instance would mean it's a move down. Given what Tau's done previously with these flat bottom compressions, it seems to lead to a move up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do have that move up, which I want us to have a move down. It has shown some pretty remarkable strength in the past, and as I mentioned earlier on, the strength it's shown today against the rest of the altcoins, it's not fair, but certainly against BTC, it is moving there. Now, let's have a look at where we could get it to. So there's a potential compression. Where could that take us to? What could that lead to? So first and foremost, let's just get rid of these so we can see them. Now I'm going to put one on. So it's going to be difficult because we are going to be talking about price discovery. So I just kind of look at where some of the extension levels could be. Now, because of the way I've drawn it, they look like negatives here, but I could flip it. It doesn't necessarily matter right now. But what we can see is, so we've climbed up there and we have totally respected this 382. This 524 has just been attacked so many times, and yet, we've not been able to lose it. So some real strength in and around here at the moment. But where could we potentially see going? I mean, I don't think 720 is out of the cards. Now, I do put other ones up here. How quickly we get to 886, I'm not necessarily too sure. But if we are looking at a move to the upside, then I would be looking this level here. And that might be completely pie in the sky because I've got no other price action to go against. But unfortunately, when we're in price discovery, that's the risk that we necessarily have to take. But we've all hopefully done our due diligence on it. I do think that this is a good token. I do think it's got a very good future for it. I just wish I had more, obviously. I haven't even got around to staking mine yet, I'll be honest with you, just because I've seen BitGuru Sensor's BitTensor Guru's APR is falling away. I'm trying to find someone else to stake with, and I'm just trying to go through that process. But that's certainly a level to look at. In terms of, let's see that flat bottom does play out. Where do we think it's going to go? Well, let's have a look again at the fib on the 4 hour and some previous price action. I mean, I don't necessarily, I actually could, because of how strong the rise has been, I would be looking at laddering like I've done before, all the way down to this level down here. Why do I say that? Well, you've actually got, I think it's the 200 creeping up here as well. But it is marking where these bottoms are before. I wouldn't be putting 100% of my offers in down here. I'd be weighting it a lot closer to that sort of 490, 486, 618 level. That's a lot of numbers I've thrown at you. 490 and 486 are the dollar values. The 618 is the Fibonacci retracement level to get down through there. Now, if we just put it on the daily, just so we can see where some of these other EMAs are. What is interesting, get this is we haven't really got an EMA necessarily close to that, but if it takes a couple of days, then 20 EMA may actually get up to this 618 level. But 50 is actually even lower. That's down at 360. So there's definitely a chance. But at the moment, I'm just looking to add to my positions. As I say, getting rid of that anchoring bias. You know, I haven't bought anything over 500. I still would be happy to buy and just sort of, you know, yes, it might bring my overall average down, but you know, when I do get around to staking and for how long I'm going to stake it, I'm going to be getting free ones, but then ultimately counteract any higher purchase level that I've got, and should bring that price back down. So yeah, that's sort of the levels that I'm looking at, but it has shown some remarkable strength. You know, we've not even talked about market makers. It's not on enough, and so much of it is locked up. It's quite difficult to accept that that may be it, but you know, if you were that's rise 1, we maybe just didn't pull back a rise 2 at the moment. We could have another very nice rise ahead of us, so I'd be looking at those definitely. Tau Inu, this is hard to price at the moment. It's hard to price because we know the level of involvement the time's having, and he is, you know, he's fighting that long-term trend line, as he's openly said that he is doing. But even without that battle, you know, on the 12 hour, which I know is a chart a lot of you've seen because that's what it uses, it's respecting that 10 very well, and it's sometimes falling down excuse me, to the 20. We've gone pretty much most of this month without a retest down to the 50. If we ever did, I think that'd be a good buying opportunity. Now, you know, cards on the table, I put 1 ETH in this, $2,000 worth, maybe a little bit more, and I may never see it again. You know, this is a full-on degen play. Yeah, we'll just see how that one pans out. But I do think there's some fundamentals around there that we as a group just need to sort of bear in mind. So this is not one to sleep on as such. And again, you know, I'm buying like here, and here. Like, he's not got that anchoring problem the first time he's bought. He just bought all the way through, and it's a good example of just forgetting that, seeing the bigger picture. So yeah. Other ones that people are in, I'm not in Claw, but I'll have a look. You know, I'm not in it. It's going to be very rough. I'm going to Cubic in a moment. It's had a very nice move recently, hasn't it? So talk about a range that it's been in. Range for actually draw a bit. The best part of two months, and then, you know, a couple of days ago it's broken out. But even better is today. Today it's had a, you know, fairly decent fall. But look at that for a high test now in a rising market off the 10 EMA, which we know it's respected. That, you know, a few hours ago, had we have seen that, that would have been a very nice entry for anyone that's in that one. So again, you know, in terms of where it can go, well, I don't think 25 is out of the question with the right you know, rest of the market narrative heading that way and retesting these levels here. It did have a rejection off this level, and I wonder if I draw a fib, that will tie in. I mean, it wicked above, but it came down. You know, the body stopped there, I suppose. But that 21 cents, it kind of had some action in and around there on its fall back down, so maybe that's a level to consider. But yeah, has done well for those excuse me, that are in it. I'll have a look at CAS. You know, I'm not in CAS either. So again, CAS, you know, we spoke about this last week, but CAS has woken up. It's had a nice climb up. It's been coiling, but actually what that's given is it time, you know, because it jumped away from this 10 EMA. getting time for it to actually come back and test on that. And we've seen here in the past coiling up to retest off these, leaps away, coiling up to retest off these. So this is what it does. Now, okay, it may go down to 12.8 and retest off that, but typically coils up, retest, gets that momentum building again, and then shoots back up. So where it can go, again, we're going to be pretty close to price discovery soon. So it's going to be hard to have a look, but for those of you that are still thinking you need a better position to buy in, then have a look at where you're going. And I know we went through it just a moment ago, and we focus a lot on BTC, but if you've got another token that you're looking to take profit from, you can build your own chart based off that. If you wanted to do CAS versus core or BMEX or whatever you held for a while that you want to cycle some profits across, you can have a look at how that's performed recently and see whether or not that seesaw, if you will, would ultimately pay out. Okay. Any others? Just it's quarter past. Not really. I mean, just to sort of keep you in the loop of the potential buy list. I didn't get any more BMX, which is a bit disappointing. The market's moved. Same with NACA, and this is again going back to that psychology point of thing of anchoring and everything else. I said no to NACA at 120 because I was being a greedy bastard. And now I need to see, well, it's almost double that. Is the risk to reward still there in terms of what multiples I can make? Does it meet my criteria? But if it does, do I just need to buy a bullet? Well, the difference between here and what it may do at 212 may be worth considering, because we've had rejection points in and around this zone anyway, and then will it reject at all-time high? This one's potentially a little bit different. But I do need to consider that actually, if it's something that I am still interested in, maybe I have a look at that. But yeah, unfortunately, that's where that one lies. Let's have a look at Bitcoin dominance. So get this on the daily. I thought we don't need any of this stuff now. Again, we've kind of been ranging, and this is something to bear in mind, because there's two things I'm going to draw now. Potential trend line here. We have actually bounced off. Are we now going to see a pushback down? You know what it means? If the dominance drops, unless it all goes into stables, which is unlikely, you might see altcoins have a nice little boom for a little bit. So just leading up to the after the ETF announcements. I mean, this was majority was ETH pumped, didn't it? But even in December, leading up to Christmas. So there's potentially that there, but also, this is just an area of previous kind of rejection points. Now, okay, further up. But yeah, it could just naturally be finding a way to reject back down. And so there's definitely a potential that an altcoin move is on the cards, which again helps me with my decision that yes, I was going to have sold my BTC. If we now have a look at things like total, I want to I don't think it's there. I think it's close. Yeah, I thought we might have crossed over $1 trillion. We would have done earlier on today when it got to like 50,300 or whatever. But Bitcoin's nearly at $1 trillion again. Just let that soak in. $1 trillion. Hopefully we've still got 18 months of upwards to go. So nice. Now we expect that will get higher, faster, and then people take profit into altcoins and see that distributed across. Which reminds me, next week, bit of an interesting topic I'm going to talk about. And have a look at what the top 100 looked like in 2017, 2021, where it might be in 2025. What is interesting from the first piece of the data is the amount of projects that fall away, that don't make it to the next bull run. And it happened in 2017 to 2021, and it's happening now from 2021 to 2024, but we've still got another year to go. So it's interesting, and actually it does have a big shakeup within there. So I think that's worth going over. So that'll be covered next week. Let's have a look. Adams put BitTensor Guru average APR is now around 3.44. Really don't know why it's falling. So he did a snapshot didn't he? And if you weren't staking by then you don't get the extra bonus. I assume it's got probably something to do with that. But I don't necessarily know because I haven't looked at any others to see if everyone's is falling. Was there a reduction in the APR because the inflation rate or however it is calculated has dropped? I don't know. I need to look into it. I mean, it's pretty easy to stake and unstake. So if I stake it with someone I don't like that, I can move it relatively quickly. Yes, I bought some Cubic. I actually did buy before Simon announced it because I was just chatting with someone and they kind of convinced me that this is a bit of a degen play. I don't even have a chart for it. I have to go on deck screen, I suppose. Oh, screen. Looks like bright. Sorry, this. I only put $500 in, so it's not letting me. Yeah. So it's not a big play at all. Very similar. In my head, I won't ever see that again. It seems to have had a. Says a 12. Is that right? That doesn't seem right. I didn't pay that for that. Yeah, I was going to say. So on CoinMarketCap, it has it as 4349. Deck screen, it has it as 7757. I mean, I'd take the 7757. Let's have a look at coin. Sorry about this. Tell you what we're going to do afterwards. Yeah, 435. I don't mind showing you. I bought it off Trade Ogre. I've got God knows how many, 113 million. Let's refresh it. I bought it for 500. Obviously, after fees and that, I pretty much break even. So, someone's asked, what about wallets? I have no idea with the wallets at the moment. I need to work that out. If you go to their website and you click on wallets, and then let's say you want a browser extension. I mean, it just takes me to GitHub. I need to work through what all of this is, etc. So I don't know is the answer at the moment. So yeah, I've left it on there, but I'll take the risk with that, and we'll see where that one pans out. In terms of price, I mean, no idea. This one is just an AI degen play. We'll see what happens with where it goes. I remember we went through it last year. I'll be honest, I wasn't necessarily sold. I think more because of the tokenomics than anything else. But yeah, I'm not saying other people have convinced me, but I've just decided to just go with it and have a little bit of fun and see what happens. Hopefully it turns out all right for us all. Total 3, I think it's one we used to have a look at quite a bit. So interestingly, Total 3 is coming up to a point in which it is previously struggled to break. Total 3 is obviously everything except for BTC and Ethereum, so that's kind of suggesting, well, wait a second. If Bitcoin dominance is going to come down, we'd expect it to go into the altcoins. But this is also running into resistance. So is it the fact that actually we may see Bitcoin dominance just plateau and money's coming out because the market value, most things is dropping down? Or are we finally going to break through this? I mean, regardless of how you look at it, this is on the daily. I know it looks spiky, but it just moves a lot. That's why. It moves 3 day. But I'd say that this still feels fairly bullish. Like a little bullish rectangle in here forming. I know the wicks now look crazy. That box doesn't look right. But yeah, similar to how it coiled up here and then moved up. I feel like it's just coiling up again, potential to move. Now, whether you want to be super bullish and say, well, if this was a bull flag, you should see this kind of move again, taking us to 736 billion, almost a trillion then. I'm not so sure if we will get there in one go, but we are kind of in clean air. I mean, let's face it, you look left, put it on the weekly now. I mean, okay, we're running into this noise here. That's our sticking point. Yeah. What have we got after that? Nothing until till 6. So we've got a 100 billion move that we could move up, which again, if Bitcoin dominance goes down and we start to see that move into altcoins, then that's a hell of a play. Just what reminds me of degen plays, and this is unbelievable. I've not checked on it in a couple of days. I can't spell it. Pandora. There it is, Pandora. This. Someone told me about this when it was $4,000 on the 8th, on the 6th. So a week, it's gone from 4,000. It actually got up to 32 grand. And now it's cooling off at 22. There's only 10,000 of them. It's some sort of NFT, some sort of new token. You know, like you got ERC20. Well, this is BCR or BRC40. I don't know. But yeah, this thing has ripped. I didn't buy any. But the ERC 404 sector. There you go. I don't know. 4,000 to 32,000 in 2 days, and now it's consolidating at 22,000. I do feel that this somewhere down the line, quite soon, someone's going to get very badly hurt. But at the moment, doing very well. I think that's probably it, guys. A little bit shorter than normal, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, you know, check fear and greed. Oh, you want to see how I got fear and greed on my chart, which was the one with it. So just go to the fear and greed. So if you just go to indicators, just type in fear and greed. And this one was the index. This one, crypto fear and greed index by Pine Query. Okay, select that, and that's what it looks like. The others are, I'd say, so everyone else's staking rewards a bit higher. Okay, I mean, you know, Simon's pally with him. Maybe Simon can ask the question as to why. Ronin is still ripping hard. Never heard of it. It's in Ronin. I've heard of Ronin. It's in Ronin wallet. Ripping hard. You can't mean this one, can you? Well, I suppose it is. But it had a cooling off. Okay. Right. Back to the. Yeah, as I say, that's kind of it for me. Thanks again for tuning in. Thursday, spreadsheet will come out and I'll reopen requests to add to it. I won't regularly update. I will update it myself. I might repost links, but if you need to use it, you need to just follow the video that will come out with it in terms of the fields that you do need to change. And you just have to update that as and see where it is. There is a subjective element to it, which I'll explain within there, and you can tweak that as you see fit. Trading Pub on Thursday afternoon. And yeah, I think that's about it, really. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will speak to you all soon. Cheers now.